Hello and welcome to 150 Days of Psalms. My name is Derek Hovind. I'm the pastor at Salem Lutheran Church in Orlando, and every day for 150 days I am exploring one of the Psalms. Today is day 30, and that means we are on Psalm number 30. With each of them, I try often to find ways that they connect with my own journey of life, and I hope that you can find ways to see how these Psalms connect with your journey as well. Psalm number 30. I will exalt you, O Lord, because you have lifted me up and have not let my enemies triumph over me. O Lord, my God, I cried out to you and you restored me to health. You brought me up, O Lord, from the dead. You restored my life as I was going down to the grave. Sing praise to the Lord, all you faithful. Give thanks in holy remembrance. God's wrath is short, God's favor lasts a lifetime. Weeping spends the night, but joy comes in the morning. While I felt secure, I said, I shall never be disturbed. You, Lord, with your favor, made me as strong as the mountains. Then you hid your face, and I was filled with fear. I cried to you, O Lord, I pleaded with my Lord, saying, what profit is there in my blood if I go down to the pit? Will the dust praise you or declare your faithfulness? Hear, O Lord, and have mercy upon me. O Lord, be my helper. You have turned my wailing into dancing. You have put off my sackcloth and clothed me with joy. Therefore my heart sings to you without ceasing. O Lord, my God, I will give you thanks forever. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. I heard the snooze alarm go off and push the button again for I can't remember how many times, snoozing over and over. Sooner or later, my wife would peek her head into the bedroom. She was up getting the kids up and going in the morning. They were little bitty ones then. And she would ask me, are you going to work today? And that was usually the thing that would get me up and moving, this question about going to work. I was struggling in my job and struggling to find the energy to get up and go each day. And this was the only time in my life that I ever used a snooze alarm. I've been getting up early as long as I could remember, all the way through high school and college, and even now, getting up in the morning has never been a problem for me. The alarm goes off, or even before that, I wake up and I pop up out of bed. But there was a few years there where the snooze alarm was a regular part of my morning, and my wife would eventually have to come and tell me that I needed to get moving. Now, later, I learned the symptoms of depression and can look back and see that it was in those days that I probably did have some depression. Not a debilitating depression that was with me and crushing in the way it can be for some people, because otherwise things were going well, and it was just this kind of cyclical sense that I wasn't where I ought to be and was struggling with all of that. The psalmist says, in my place of stability, while I felt secure, I shall never be disturbed. Some translations say my prosperity, I thought I would never be moved. And that really describes where I was. I was in a place of stability with employment and family and security and prosperity. And that seems like exactly where you want to be. And in that time, I could have said, I shall not be moved. I will not be disturbed. And yet I was. I was having trouble each day getting up and getting going. It's much worse for the psalmist who likens their situation to death, talking about going down to the pit and being in a place of death and God dragging them up from that place, bringing them out of that terrible dread in which they lived. And I too found that God found me in that place and lifted me up out of it and put me in a new place on a different sort of grounding for life, a grounding that very much is steeped in grace and mercy in a way that it wasn't before. And so the psalmist is able to cry this out and say, like, I'm almost dead, and to see that God can do something about it. And then you get to the end part of the psalm that says, you have turned my wailing into dancing. You have put off my sackcloth and clothed me with joy. That wailing, that time of mourning, has been transformed into something else. I had the opportunity several years ago to preside over the funeral of an American serviceman who had married into a Hawaiian family. We have a Hawaiian service once a month at our church, and the leader of that service, it was his father-in-law. And when we planned that service, this psalm was chosen to be a part of that memorial. And after we read this psalm, there was a hula. And that hula was a beautiful dance of storytelling, which is what hula is. It's a way of physically dancing and telling stories. And that hula that followed that psalm was such a beautiful transition. It took the words of this, right, turning my wailing into dancing, and it happened right in front of us. We read the words, and then there was this dance of beauty and boldness. Right in the face of death was this dance. And it didn't erase the grief exactly, but it gave that grief a place to be carried and gathered, so that the mourning and the wailing was turned into dancing. And in so doing, there was even an opportunity for joy to find us a bit on that day. And as the psalmist says, therefore my heart sings to you, it made some space for our hearts to sing in that moment. The psalmist understands that God can take us from those places of the pit and get us to places of singing joy. And we don't always experience that right in the moment, but eventually those things can happen and do happen. And those days of my snooze alarm are gone, and I now am able to sing for joy. It doesn't mean there won't be further times that are more difficult to come, but to trust that God will still show up and turn those times of wailing and grief into times of dancing and joy. Let us pray. Darkness is a real thing for us, Lord. Sometimes it is but a shadow in an otherwise bright place. Sometimes it is the dark of dusk, looming yet still touched by light. Sometimes it is the dark surrounding a full moon that pushes against it. Sometimes it is the deep darkness of a cloudy night. Sometimes it is the darkness that feels like death. Shine your light, Lord. Draw us up. Dry our eyes. Set us to dancing. Amen. Thank you for joining me for 150 days of Psalms. Psalm 30 today. We'll be back tomorrow with Psalm number 31.